Hi, this is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happened throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and world. I'm Daurian Isagulov. And let us start from the official agenda. The European Union and Kazakhstan have begun negotiations on an agreement to simplify the process of issuing Schengen visas to Kazakh citizens. This announcement came during a meeting between President Tokayev and European Commission Vice President Kaja Kallas in Almaty. The talks focused on enhancing cooperation between the two parties, with particular emphasis on energy, industry, digitalization and major infrastructure projects, such as the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor. Also, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev highlighted the need for caution and responsibility in addressing the complex global challenges amid growing instability. He reaffirmed Kazakhstan's commitment to resolving international conflicts through diplomatic dialogue. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas paid her first official visit to Central Asia. In Turkmenistan, she chaired the 20th EU Central Asia Ministerial Meeting with representatives from Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan in attendance. According to the EU delegation, the discussions covered a wide range of issues, including transport and digital connectivity, critical raw materials, energy and water resources, trade and education. Afterward, Kallas traveled to Tashkent and Almaty for meeting with Presidents Mirziyoyev and Tokayev. Meanwhile, in an exclusive interview with Silkway, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, highlighted her priorities and vision for further developing the partnership with Central Asia, particularly Kazakhstan. The head of European diplomacy also welcomed the ongoing efforts to facilitate the visa process for Kazakh citizens traveling to the EU. Kallas emphasized the strategic nature of EU-Kazakhstan cooperation, stating that it will remain strong now and in the future. She added that her first ever visit to Kazakhstan aims to deepen the partnership and identify new areas for collaboration.
Let me ask you in more details about the cooperation in energy sector, because this sector is very important here in Kazakhstan. It's one of the major sectors of the Kazakh economy. Now Kazakhstan is on its way to make a transition into the green agenda. It has pledged to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. And the big part of this transition is also the so-called rare earth material market. So the interest is obviously there, and there are a lot of different players, different global partners who are interested in this market. So how does EU, again, envision its participation in these markets particularly?
Well, we have the know-how, we have technology, and I can see this as a mutual cooperation. Like you say, it's the green and digital transition that needs a lot of minerals or critical raw materials to really be implemented. But it's also, if you think about the green transition, then it's good for the environment, it's good for the people in general, and it's also good for the planet. So this goes hand in hand. And of course, I mean, we can bring the know-how, we can also bring investments, what are needed in order to develop these sectors even further. And what comes to energy, then Europe is interested in diversifying its energy portfolio, because in the past we have made a mistake to put all the eggs in one basket. That's why it's good to have more partners to diversify, not only to have different partners, but also to have different sources of energy, renewables, but also different sources, so that they balance out each other.
And I think we're also here talking about the facilitation of this transition process here in this region, and also like broader between the European Union and Central Asia.
Yes, the facilitation is also very important. Of course, we don't see the green transition as something, you know, in its just for the green transition. We see it as also economic, but also environmental opportunities. So it's opportunities for the people, the jobs that it brings, but also the cleaner environment it brings, and that is very much related also to the better health of people and you know, good benefits.
And it also opens up negotiations for the investments, right?
Yes, exactly.
In the sector.
That is also what I'm saying, that economical benefits, so the investments coming in, the jobs created also for the locals and the prosperity for the local society.
Yes, economic dialogue is very important, is vital, because it facilitates process, it opens up opportunities to implement really important initiatives and projects. But what about political dialogue? You've mentioned security issues, this is very important. And if we talk about Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan is known for its multilateral approach in its foreign policy. So how, again, European Union and Kazakhstan and Central Asia enhance political engagement?
I think we are living in this very turbulent world, and that's why we need to find partners globally. That's why we are also, you know, going in depth and strengthening our relationship with Central Asia. We had yesterday a Central Asian ministerial meeting, and we will have next week Central Asian EU summit to deepen our cooperation in different aspects. And because, I mean, if we take the Central Asian countries, you are in also geographically in a difficult position. But it's clear that what we see happening in the world, it is also presenting a threat. So we need to address these threats really together. What more can we do as collectively? I mean, also to have these partnerships, not only that the Central Asian countries are working together, but also that EU and Central Asia find mutual cooperation points.
How do you assess this work so far? I mean, how much progress do we have in that terms?
Well, there is a lot to do, I would say. It's a good foundation, but there's still a lot to do, and I think the political dialogue also about the different threats is very important to acknowledge what are the threats in your region, what are the threats in our region, and what are the mutual issues and where we can find mutual cooperation points.
The EU High Representative also commented on the upcoming EU Central Asia Summit, set to take place next week in Uzbekistan. According to the EU's top diplomat, the summit will provide a significant boost to cooperation between Europe and Central Asia, creating opportunities for implementation of new projects across various economic sectors. Most notably, it will focus on transport, logistics, education and people-to-people exchanges.
You've mentioned the upcoming very important historic event, EU Central Asia Summit, which will be held next week in Uzbekistan. So what are your expectations prior to this event, and what do you think are the main objectives of the event like this?
Well, yesterday we had a very good meeting on the foreign ministers level, so preparing for the summit. So we were also there recognizing the different points that could be deliverables at the summit. And we found many points when it comes to trade cooperation, also when it comes to energy, but also transport. I mean, the Trans-Caspian transport corridor, for example. Also, people-to-people contacts, to have a regular change of young diplomats, for example. The cooperation on the education field when it comes to Erasmus Plus and also the network for scientists to do the research cooperation and also exchange views.
The full exclusive interview with Kaja Kallas is already available on the official website of Silkway and its YouTube channel. Scan the QR code below and watch it. Kazakhstan-Uzbekistan cooperation continues to develop intensively. Presidents Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and Shavkat Mirziyoyev are set to hold an informal meeting in Almaty today on March 29. They plan to discuss the strengthening of strategic partnership and alliance between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, as well as key regional issues relevant to Central Asia. The agenda also includes visits to several cities, landmarks and an exhibition dedicated to artificial intelligence. It's worth noting that the similar bilateral meeting between the leaders took place in Kyiv in early April last year. Shavkat Mirziyoyev will also chair the first ever European Union Central Asia Summit set to take place next week on April 3rd and 4th in Uzbekistan. European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are expected to arrive in Samarkand, where they will discuss strengthening cooperation in transport, digital connectivity, strategic raw materials and security. We're bringing to the studio our political expert Ozhet Shigirbayev with his take on the week's key development in Central Asia. Ozhet, great to have you with us.
Hello, Dorian. Thanks for having me.
Ozhet, we know that the EU has already signed enhanced partnership agreements with almost all Central Asian countries except Uzbekistan. Do you think this upcoming summit could mark a turning point in the economic relationship between Tashkent and Brussels?
Well, actually, they have the agreement of 1996. It was called the Agreement on Partnership and Cooperation between Uzbekistan and European Community. But previously, last week, the ambassador of European Union to Uzbekistan pointed out that maybe in the first half of 2025, this agreement will be signed. This new agreement will cover the issues of trade, economic cooperation, investment issue, tax administration, and all other important issues.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the visit of President of Uzbekistan to Kazakhstan, that of course followed the meeting between the two countries' foreign ministers in Kyiv. There's a lot going on across the region and you've been keeping close eye on it all. So Ozhet, tell us more. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dorian. I'm ready to share my top 5 stories from Central Asia just in a moment. The first meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan was held in Kyiv at March 20, introducing a new dialogue format initiated by the leaders of both countries. Kazakhstan's Foreign Minister, Mr. Murat Nurtlev, emphasized that the two nations are not only brotherly neighbors but also strategic partners moving towards shared prosperity. Economic ties continue to strengthen, with bilateral trade already exceeding $4 billion of USD, aiming for $10 billion of USD. In the industrial sector, 78 joint projects are under development. The next meeting of the foreign ministers is set for August this year in Burabay, Kazakhstan. And additionally, this week, President Tokayev ratified an agreement to establish an industrial cooperation center with Uzbekistan, which is expected to give a new impetus to cooperation in the fields of trade and industry. Overall, considering the dynamics of the visits, one can expect the strengthening of cooperation in areas such as trade and joint business. In 2024, Azerbaijan's direct foreign investments in Uzbekistan's economy reached a record 93 million of USD, 4 times more than in 2023. According to the Central Bank of Azerbaijan, investment volumes grew up by nearly 70 million of USD over the year. As a result, Uzbekistan now accounts for 5.3% of Azerbaijan's total foreign investments. Interestingly, while investments in Uzbekistan surged, Azerbaijan's overall foreign investment volume declined. In 2024, it amounted to 1.76 billion of USD, marking a 43.5% decrease compared to the previous year. And here's another key point. Alongside investments, remittances are also on the rise. In just the first 9 months of 2024, money transfers from Azerbaijan to Uzbekistan reached nearly 4 million of USD, an increase of 45% compared to the same period in 2023. The foundation for Uzbekistan's first nuclear power plant is scheduled to be poured in 2026, with the first reactor set to launch in 2029. The construction of the plant's foundation is planned for the second quarter of 2026. According to Azim Ahmedgadjayev, director of the Agency for Atomic Energy, the project is progressing ahead of schedule, and the final cost will not exceed $2 billion of USD. It has also been announced that the first nuclear reactor is expected to be commissioned in 2029, with the remaining reactors coming online gradually through 2033. In addition, Uzbekistan, together with Russia, has established a joint educational infrastructure for training personnel for nuclear power plants. At the Tashkent branch of MIFI, 300 students will be trained. As a reminder, on May 27 last year, Rosatom and Uzatom signed a contract to build 330 megawatt nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan's Jiza region. The project includes 6 Ritom-200N reactors with a capacity of 55 megawatts. The state-owned Uzbekistan enterprise Navurian has signed a contract with Kazakhstan's company Logistics Center for the transportation of Uzbek uranium concentrate from the port of St. Petersburg to France. The contract is valued at 9 million euro. It's equals to 9.7 million of USD. Under the agreement, the Kazakh logistics company must transport 500 containers of uranium material to the Malveshi commune in the southern France by the end of March 2026. The contract stipulates that each shipment must reach its destination within 15 days from the date of departure from the Russian port. President of Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Sadir Japarov, has ratified agreement between the Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Tajikistan on the construction and use of highways, which was signed on March 13, 2025 in Bishkek. The document outlines the construction of 2 neutral status highways, Dacha-Kapchigai, which will bypass the eastern part of the Kapchigai settlement and will be used by Tajikistan, and Minoruk-Samarkandek, which will bypass the northern part of the Surkh village and will be used by Kyrgyzstan. Additionally, the agreement provides for the joint development and equal use of the Osh-Razakov and Isfara-Varuh road intersection, which will also receive neutral status. Overall, this initiative marks a significant step toward restoring trade and logistics ties between the two countries, against the backdrop of ongoing efforts to resolve border disputes. Firstly, the project aims to ease tensions in border areas where disputes over road access and transportation routes have previously arisen. The establishment of neutral highways and a shared intersection demonstrate both nations' commitment to compromise and pragmatic cooperation. And secondly, improving road infrastructure will have a positive effect on economic relations, ensuring uninterrupted movement of goods, services and people, a particularly relevant factor in the context of regional integration and trade development. That's all from my part, Dorian. Giving the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Ozhet, for this detailed review. The visit of Kaja Kallas and preparations for the upcoming EU Central Asia Summit in Samarkand reflect the European Union's growing interest in the region, says Peteris Ustups, director at the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnerships, in an exclusive comment for New Time. According to him, this renewed focus is driven by Brussels' desire to diversify its political and economic ties and seek new partners amid global instability. At the heart of this effort is the Global Gateway Strategy, the EU's answer to China's Belt and Road Initiative. What's behind this ambitious project and what role is Central Asia expected to play in it? We explore this in our next segment. The EU's Global Gateway Strategy aims to mobilize 300 billion euros in public and private investments worldwide by 2027 to support sustainable growth and connectivity. Central Asia is a key focus, especially in green energy, where EU interest has steadily grown over the past 2 decades. For instance, EU will allocate 40 million euros to Tajikistan this year for projects in green energy and cotton production. According to Peteris Ustups from the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnerships, Europe's approach is not only about infrastructure, it's about values, which sets it apart from other global players.
But we look at other elements of the support respective projects needed in each of the country. Either this would be linked with democratic values and standards, either it would be good governance and transparency, either it would be equal partnership, either it would be strong support to the green and clean transition, or for instance, it would really catalyze and create also value added for our partner countries respectively.
At the country level, the Global Gateway strategy in Kazakhstan focuses on strategic partnership in raw materials, battery production and green hydrogen. In this context, Central Asia is not a new partner, but a trusted ally, Ustups emphasize.
Why Central Asia? We are already a strong partner for Central Asia for many years, I would say for many decades. It's not new. If we look only at the trade statistics, EU is the second biggest trading partner for Central Asia. The statistics of 2022 showed us that we trade approximately 24.5% of the combined foreign trade in Central Asia. And if we look already today at the investments, then the EU is #1 investor in Central Asia. And it is 40% of our cumulative investment in Central Asia today.
Global Gateway also carries a clear geopolitical dimension. Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan and climate change are all reshaping the EU's approach, says Ustups. The EU is reassessing supply routes and sources of critical raw materials, and Central Asia is a key region that can no longer be overlooked.
First of all, we as the European Union, together with partners all around the globe, are seeing the impact of the climate change. So we adopted the policy of the Green Deal, which facilitates transition towards the green energy, green economy. And in that respect, Global Gateway is something what we would like to bring to Central Asia and work very closely with Central Asian governments. So from that perspective, you can say that it is a geopolitical.
A key project under the initiative is the Trans-Caspian Corridor, into which the EU has already begun investing. Plans include modernizing ports, building new railway lines, and developing logistics hubs and shipping routes across the Caspian Sea.
And in 2024, in January 2024, we organized Investors Forum in Brussels on the basis of this study done by the EBRD. And we collectively, with our key partners, we managed to get support worth of 10 billion for transport corridor. So from one side, you can say it is just a pledge. This is just the money. But we are not stopping there because we are systematically engaging individually with Central Asian governments, country governments, in order to see what kind of needs are there.
Global Gateway is Europe's attempt to strengthen strategic ties and offer partner regions more than just an alternative. As Petris Ustups points out, the EU is determined to move quickly, responding to the needs of regional governments. Daurian Sagulov, New Time. The United States has announced the results of negotiations with Russia and Ukraine, which took place from March 23rd to 25th in Riyadh. According to official statements, the US and Russia have agreed to ensure safe navigation and to avoid the use of force in the Black Sea. An understanding also reached between the US and Ukraine. In addition to the US and Ukraine agreed to prevent the use of commercial vessels for military purposes in the region. Another outcome of the talks includes efforts to prevent strikes on energy infrastructure in both Russia and Ukraine. Commenting on the negotiations, US President Donald Trump said that the United States is in deep discussions with Russia and Ukraine, and it's going well.
So we've made a lot of progress on two fronts, on both sections that we call them sections, but they're much more than that, Russia, Ukraine, and also the Middle East, and we'll see what happens. We're in deep discussions with Russia and Ukraine, and I would say it's going well, but it's a situation we should have never had to even think about, should have never happened.
An agreement of freedom of navigation in the Black Sea to ensure the protection of civilian vessels and port infrastructure will be a crucial contribution to global food security and supply chains, said UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric. He reminded that UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres wrote to the leaders of Ukraine, Russia and Turkey in February last year to put forward a proposal for safe and free navigation in the Black Sea.
The Secretary General welcomes the discussions and reported commitments reached in Saudi Arabia by the United States, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine. Reaching an agreement on freedom of navigation in the Black Sea to ensure the protection of civilian vessels and port infrastructure will be a crucial contribution to the global food security and supply chains, reflecting the importance of trade routes from both Ukraine and the Russian Federation to global markets.
Now let's take you to Istanbul in Turkey. There are protests now going on after the arrest of President Erdogan's main rival, the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. The Turkish government has said that they wouldn't tolerate threats to public order and block the gatherings. The mayor of Istanbul, who was detained on Wednesday along with others from his party, had been expected to be formally named as their presidential candidate. Now further protests are expected. Let's get the very latest on what's going on in Turkey after that arrest in a story from our reporter Baljan Samigulina.
What started as a legal case now threatens to escalate into a national standoff, with Istanbul at its core in the tensions. The number of protesters in support of Ekrem İmamoğlu is growing day by day, but let's delve into why it started first. The opposition CHP party held a nationwide preliminary vote on Sunday to nominate Ekrem İmamoğlu as their main presidential candidate for 2028 elections. However, a Turkish court has ordered his arrest pending trial on charges of corruption, which İmamoğlu himself denies, calling it a smear campaign. The mayor of Istanbul, also previously accused of terrorism, charges now dropped, criticized the indictment, pointing out its reliance on anonymous witnesses. So while the ruling AK Party claims İmamoğlu's arrest is part of a legal process, critics argue it's an attempt to eliminate a rising political challenger.
Üzülerek söylüyorum.
I say with regret that a handful of minds are trying to usurp the will of our nation by abusing the police. We are facing bullying, but I want you to know that I will not be undaunted. I entrust myself to my people. Let all our nation know that I will stand upright. I will continue to fight with that person and his mind, which uses this whole process like an apparatus.
It was Ekrem İmamoğlu speaking, issuing that statement just before his arrest, and now we are witnessing protests out on the streets in his support, despite a ban on public gatherings. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his party have denied claims of his involvement in İmamoğlu's arrest, insisting Turkey's judiciary is independent. He responded to the call for demonstrations, warning the authorities would not tolerate any threats against the public order.
We will certainly not allow the CHP and its cronies to disrupt public order and disturb the peace of our people through provocations. We will not tolerate operations to be conducted or surgeries to be done on Turkey, or the building of new walls of discord between 85 million people through social engineering.
Thus, a war of rhetoric and action is intensifying between the two parties, and this weekend could bring a critical shutdown, says Hakan Güneş, an associate professor of political science at Istanbul University. As he pointed out, with the weekend's arrival, we could see even more demonstrators hit the streets. While tens of thousands have already protested, mostly students, a larger portion of Istanbul's 16 million residents could join in.
The protesters believe that this is the last moment that we can save the democracy. This is the last point. This is the red line. Okay, so that's why this is the second biggest ever protest in terms of number of protesters in the whole history of Turkey.
The other thing that will happen this weekend is the CHP is still expected to officially nominate İmamoğlu as their presidential candidate, despite his charges. As part of this, the party has called for a symbolic vote on Sunday, urging citizens to show support at polling stations across the country. Additionally, we may also learn whether Mayor of Istanbul will be eventually formally charged or released. However, regardless of the court resolution, opposition are still planning to put into life an economic boycott to the government after the protests stop.
Focus of the opposition for the coming weeks is something very, well, not a brand new idea, but relatively new thing, which is the economic boycott. So nobody is expecting to save İmamoğlu from prison next week, but everybody expects that those companies will collapse. This is the next thing that we are going to see.
Thus, today's actions must be viewed in the context of possible early elections, with the 2028 election just 3 years away. This is the first time an opposition party is nominating a presidential candidate so far in advance. So two parties will have challenges in the upcoming elections. Erdogan, meantime, would need to change the constitution to run again, as it limits presidents to 2 terms. He lacks the votes to amend the constitution, but could call for early elections to bypass this rule. But in the last local elections, Erdogan's party unexpectedly finished second nationally. Though he's long defied predictions of defeat, today's moves, as experts say, suggest he's genuinely concerned about these tensions.
I do think that Turkey has been quite adventurous, and I suspect that other leaders might be more adventurous. He's tried to be more independent vis-a-vis Europe and especially the United States. I suspect that the CHP would be trying to have more cordial relations with the United States and with Europe. Even before Erdogan, I think going back quite some time, Turkey going back to the 90s with the leaders who were in power after the independence of the Turkic republics.
Notably, the international response to this protest has been limited. The European Union urged Turkey to uphold democratic values, with some criticism from France and Germany. This muted global reaction, as experts say, might be linked that Turkey is a regional heavyweight, a key NATO member, and an important ally, so few are eager to confront President Erdogan. Additionally, global attention, as observers say, might be fixated on the other global events, the war in Ukraine and continuing escalations in the Middle East. Balzhan Samigulina, New Time.
And last but not least, an exhibition titled The Heritage in Stitches, a journey through the embroidery and sewing traditions of Uzbekistan, has opened at the National Museum of Kazakhstan, showcasing the unique art of Uzbek embroidery. Among the exhibits are robes, traditional headdresses and bedspreads adorned with gold embroidery, as well as jewelry featuring filigrane work and precious stones, along with other accessories from past centuries. The exhibition reflects the centuries-old traditions of Central Asian decorative and applied arts, and its organization contributes to strengthening ties between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. It will run until June 1st.
The exhibition showcases 122 exhibits from 5 large museums of Uzbekistan. The preparation for this exhibition took a year, during which we worked closely with curators from the museums of Uzbekistan. As part of this exhibition, more than 30 museum exhibits were restored to prepare them for display. I believe that interest in this exhibition among our Kazakh audience will continue to grow. From the very beginning, visitors have been eager to learn how long it will run and what makes the exhibits unique. We believe this exhibition will be a great success.
And that's it for today. All the main news about Kazakhstan and Central Asia you can find here. More special projects about our country you can also watch on Silkway TV channel. So stay tuned and see you next week.